This is episode 226 of That Shakespeare Life. Just like William Shakespeare, our show is supported by our patrons. That Shakespeare Life is made available completely free and without any commercials, thanks to the support of listeners just like you. Explore all the benefits of being a patron and sign up today at patreon.com/thatshakespearelife. In several of William Shakespeare's plays, he mentions dragons. He talks about a fire drake, and he talks about different attributes that the dragons have, them being fire-breathing, flying, cave-dwelling, night-stalking, fearsome fighters, in over 20 references across all of his works. In today's show, we sat down and we talked with the author of Dragons and Their Origins for English Heritage by Carolyne Larrington to learn about exactly what Shakespeare would have thought about dragons and what the audience he was writing to would have understood about how they worked, and even some famous dragons right from Shakespeare's lifetime. Here's what Carolyne had to say. So what were the general attributes of dragons, or perhaps even famous dragons, that Shakespeare's audience would have been most familiar with?
The kinds of dragons they probably knew most about, apart from the fire drake that we've talked about, would be some of the local dragons. And in the 17th century, so a little bit after Shakespeare's time, you begin to get chapbooks, which are kind of cheap printed pamphlets, if you like, telling stories or songs or ballads about notable creatures or notable events. And we have some material about some local dragons. And one typical one is the Dragon of Wantley, who is one of these poison-spitting four-legged dragons who lurks in near a river, I think. And he has such strong armor that he's very difficult to kill. And this is part of contemporary thinking about dragons, that they have a weak spot, but you have to know where it is. And quite often when early modern heroes are trying to kill the dragon, they have to find some kind of special contraption. So maybe, and in the case of the Dragon of Wantley, a knight called Moore of Moore Hall got a very specially pointed set of boots manufactured because he knew that the only place that the dragon was vulnerable was, to put it politely, underneath its tail. And so he delivers a mighty kick to the dragon, and the dragon expires, saying, "Ah, me, if only I had protected my tail properly." But in some other stories, you have knights who, or warriors who know that really the dragon is so armored that you need something like a very long spear with fire on the end. And then as the dragon gapes its mouth open to swallow you, if you're quick enough, you can shove your spear with the flaming, sometimes it's a flaming wheel, because you don't want the dragon to just blow your flames out. So you have to have something quite substantial that's flaming. And if you can thrust that down inside the dragon, that can kill it. But of course, to get that close to the dragon, you've got to have something which will protect you against all that poison that it's spitting out. So there would be, in Shakespeare's England, an idea that dragons are really hard to kill. But if you have the right kind of scientific know-how, or you have a kind of technological device, you can see them off. But also that you've got to be pretty well armored yourself. And so those are the dangers of dragons. But what were dragons doing? Well, we have the idea that dragons like to sit on hoards of treasure. And so there's quite a strong association with dragons and gold hoards, that if you have a mound of treasure that's left unattended, a dragon would show up and sit on it. These are more often the flying dragons, but some of the creeping dragons also are very fond of gold. And they don't do anything with the gold, they just guard it. And if you want to take the gold from them, you're going to have to kill them. Otherwise, they come out and are predators, and they destroy particularly cattle. So you don't want one anywhere near your farm. And if you have a dragon in the vicinity, particularly if you're expanding agriculture away from villages and farms that are well established into more marginal areas, that's where you might find a dragon. And then you need to get someone to come and sort your dragon out. And in the medieval period, if you can't get a knight to do that, quite often you could call upon a saint. But obviously, with the religious changes that followed the Reformation in Shakespeare's England, you would not think that saints were very helpful in this regard. You might be aware of some of the stories about saints, but it's not something that, since the cult of the saints is something that's very much repressed in Shakespeare's time, you wouldn't make much play with that idea that a saint can be called in to deal with the dragon.
That Shakespeare Life is researched and produced by me, Cassidy Cash. Our audio engineer is Gary Mayholm. Carolyne's answers to this question about what Shakespeare would have understood about dragons was just one of several questions that we asked her in our full interview on dragons from Shakespeare's lifetime. You can listen to the complete episode on That Shakespeare Life podcast, available at CassidyCash.com/episode 226. That's CassidyCash.com/EP226. That website is also a great place to find even more history about dragons from Shakespeare's lifetime, because our show notes are full of coordinating pictures and visual content that we can't share on the audio. We put all of that into the show notes for today's episode, so make sure you go to that website to find those. That's it for this week. Thank you for listening. I'm Cassidy Cash, and I hope you learned something new about the Bard. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.